Sure, right here?
Yeah.
Right here. So, beautiful day, and I know not many people are thinking about preparing right now after, the hurricane season's over, right? It ended November, but there's a lot to discuss about it, and there's a lot that people and homeowners should know. There are a lot of things we learned about this year and last year also, so we'd like to cover all of that. And by the way, how many people are homeowners here? Okay. Okay, now this is going to be for homeowners, but also for the regular public, because this book we're going to go over. It's going to cover things like emergency supplies and evacuation planning and all that. Okay. So this is the homeowner's handbook to prepare for natural hazards. It's put out by the University of Hawaii Sea Grant. Sea Grant is part of NOAA. There are 33 Sea Grant college programs in the U.S. Their mission is to bring research that's done in the university and bring it out into the community. Okay, so this handbook, it first started in 2007, and you can see from the cover. Let's see, this laser is not working. Okay, so from the cover, yeah, you can just change it better. I'll move this, and then when you change it, okay, there we go. It sort of like portrays the message of the book, okay? There are traditional things you do to prepare, like your emergency supplies, and it's indicated by a first aid kit. But then there are non-traditional things you do, being proactive, evacuation planning, strengthening your house, things like that. And it covers the 4 major hazards we need to deal with: hurricanes, tsunamis, earthquakes, and floods, okay? So you can see the partners for the book. Again, we're with the University of Hawaii Sea Grant College Program. Also, a lot of university departments, all state and civil defense and emergency management agencies are involved in this book. Also, National Weather Service, Pacific Tsunami Warning Center. And so these are some of the partners. And then there are a lot of private partners in the book. There are maybe 15 private partners. They're all good community citizens, but they also have a desire for people to prepare also. Like you're an insurance company, right? And you're insuring the house or a property. You want to make sure these properties perform well during the event. Similar with banks, like American Savings Bank, right? Their houses, the properties are collateral for the mortgages, right? So they don't want, when there's an event, all of a sudden the things that they have collateral for to be damaged. Okay, so this is the book, came out in 2014. This is the 3rd edition that we have right now, in 2014. We're probably going to modify it again this year. It's gone through 9 print runs with 75,000 copies since 2007. It started in Hawaii, and it's in 8 states in the U.S., and then the Republic of the Marshall Islands and Hwang book just came out last year. Okay? So this is what the Republic of the Marshall Islands book looks like. And all of these books are available online for free. So to get it, you would just Google Homeowner's Handbook to Prepare for Natural Hazards. And if you're interested in the Hawaii book, you type Hawaii, or Massachusetts if you're interested in the Massachusetts book, or whatever. Okay. So the key things we're going to cover, not in all in depth, give it a limited time, but we're going to talk about emergency supplies, an evacuation kit. Everyone should have that, right? You should have an evacuation plan. And a lot of times you'll see a lot of documents at the federal, state level. It says people should make a plan, but it really doesn't tell them how to make a plan, right? And when they're talking about a plan, I always think about the most important thing is evacuation planning. Where are you going to go during a tsunami? Where are you going to go during a hurricane? And they're different, so you need to know where to go for those. Those are things you should know about and have covered in your evacuation plan. And then know the difference between watch and warnings. The third thing have insurance. If you're in a flood zone, have flood insurance. Most houses in Hawaii, especially if they have a mortgage, they require hurricane insurance. And it's going to differ from state to state. And then the last thing, this is not covered with a lot of material because it's, they don't think about it, but preparing where you live is important, not only for protection, but also it may be able, it plays a role in evacuation planning. So we'll cover a little bit about that. Okay, so remember 2015, hurricane season. Does anyone know what hurricane season is? Yeah, well, it's June 1st to November 30th, right? So hurricane season for 2015 just ended. And it was a record year in the Pacific. And Hawaii was very fortunate. We're going to go, I'll just show where you can see all the tracks for all the different systems going through the Pacific, Central Pacific. We had a record number of tropical cyclones. So tropical cyclones are tropical depressions, like the winds under 34 miles per hour. Then tropical storms, it's like 35 miles per hour to 72 miles per hour, or 73 miles per hour. And then a hurricane is anything over 74 miles per hour, sustained wind. So, but all of those these are all tropical cyclones. There's a record number in the Pacific in Hawaii, 15. And to put that in context, these are all from the NOAA National Weather Service, okay? So you could see the record number of tropical cyclones we had in the Pacific. And to put it in context, okay, so here's 1982, okay, you go starting at this end, and you get a variation, all of a sudden you get a big peak in 1982, or 10 that year. Does anyone remember what happened in 82? Yes, that's correct. El Nino year, and also Hurricane Eva hit that year, okay? And then you go along again, a variation, and all of a sudden, it's 1992.
Hurricane Aniki.
Yes, Hurricane Aniki, 92-11 that year, and Aniki hit Kauai. Okay, then you had a year, 2 years after that, 11 also, but no hits on Hawaii. And then all of a sudden, you're getting like 15 there. So just because you get, if you have more and more systems in the Pacific, you're more likely to get hit. It's almost like having one lottery ticket versus 15, right? Just because you have your 15 lottery tickets doesn't mean you're going to win the jackpot. And just because you only have 2 doesn't mean you're not going to, there's still a chance you can get hit. But you can see there's some correlation between some of the events that hit Hawaii and the large number of systems. And we're going to be talking a bit about 2015, 2014, what we learned in 2014. We only had 5 systems then. 5 systems. Oh, sorry. I can just point that. We only had 5 systems in 2014, but the cell did hit the Big Island, okay? And we're going to talk about 80, 92, and 2000, okay, very briefly. And that's fine. I'll just advance this temporarily this way. Okay, so this is last year, 2014, and both last year and this year, we saw it was very unusual. We're seeing these large hurricanes, and I think it was unusual that we're getting multiple systems in at the same time. And you see these satellite images, and you could see 2 or 3. And actually, this year in 2015, we set a record because there were for the first time we had 3 major hurricanes. Major hurricanes are category 3 or higher. They had 3 major hurricanes in the Pacific at the same time. Okay, so this is 2014. We had Estelle and Julio, and I think for Estelle and Julio, we were very fortunate last year. We learned a lot about this. Okay, so a cell was coming along. Okay, here's a cell. And yes.
Where's the Hawaiian Islands between Julio and San?
Okay, the Hawaiian Islands are, I think it's up there. It was like right up there somewhere when this picture was taken. Okay, but I'll show you the next picture. Okay, so this is like 2 days before, this is a cell. Okay, this is 2 days before supposed landfall, and most of the models made it just as likely to hit Oahu as did the Big Island. We're fortunate in a way, not people in the Big Island don't think this, but we're fortunate because fortunately the cell had weakened from a hurricane to a tropical storm when it made landfall, and the other also, it impacted an area that was not as densely populated as Oahu. The people on the Big Island in that area did suffer a lot, and they did have a lot of property damage. Okay, and then 2 months later, this is still in 2014, Ana came by, and it's almost like a worst case scenario because the right front quadrant of the hurricane is always the worst, the most damaging. Okay, if the hurricane has sustained winds of 100 miles per hour and it's moving 15 miles per hour forward, in the right front quadrant, the wind speeds add. So the wind speed in the right front quadrant is 115 miles per hour, and the left front quadrant, it's 85 miles per hour. Okay, so because it's the winds are moving forward and it's moving forward, they add. Okay, it's almost like if you're paddling in a canoe downstream 10 miles per hour, the stream's going 5 miles versus going upstream. So it's the same type of thing. But so the right front quadrant always the most damaging. And again, wind speed's very important because the pressure on a building is not proportional to the velocity of wind speed, but the square of velocity of the wind speed. So if the wind speed goes up 33%, you'd be doubling the pressure on the building, on your building. Okay. So anyway, the right front quadrant is also the most damaging. So 2 days before, this is still in 2014, Hana had a projected course that actually hit the Big Island and this is all with the right front quadrant, Maui and Oahu. Right? We were fortunate though that there was a high pressure system that moved this system to the east of us. Okay. Okay, so now this is last year before a cell hit. Okay, so I think these pictures of multiple systems in the Pacific really scared a lot of people, and a lot of people evacuated and tried to get their emergency supplies. So the key thing is if you wait till a watch or a warning, you're not going to be able to get your supplies because this is like 3 days before. Okay, so our goal, and in the book, we always say there's a list of what you need, like 7 days supply of non-perishable water, non-perishable food and water, and then your radio batteries and flashlights. The list is in there, but that should be prepared so before hurricane season, right? Okay, so and the goal is when there's a watch or a warning, you do not need to go to the store for supplies, or you do not need to go to the gas station for fuel. During hurricane season, I usually fill up when the tank gets half full. Normally, I fill up, like out of hurricane season, I fill up when the tank gets quarter full, but during hurricane season, I fill up when it's a half full. Right? So this is some damage from a cell. Remember, it did not hit the Big Island as a hurricane, but as a tropical storm. So even as a tropical storm that's winds under 74 miles per hour, it still caused a lot of damage. Now this damage here is actually caused by the winds creating storm surge, and then the storm surge pushing the coastal buildings off the foundation. And then there were a lot of albizia trees, these tall-growing, fast-growing trees with shallow roots, very easily for the wind to topple over and damage houses. All Are most people here, do most people live around here, Hanauma Bay, or where do you live? Hawaii Kai? Okay. Hawaii Kai. Okay, so I don't think you have albizia trees at Hawaii Kai, but they're in Manoa, so they're on Oahu. But the bottom line is you got to be careful about tree damage, and how strong your trees are is really a function of the tree itself, because they're like coconut palm trees are pretty strong, but still got to be careful with those. Okay, so even with the Isel and hitting the Big Island, not all of the wind damage was caused by trees. Okay, and this I wanted to point out that even if if the roof is poor condition, even a tropical storm, not a hurricane now, but a tropical storm could cause roof damage. So here you see the corner of the roof, the damage is being initiated at the corner of the roof of that house. And also at the edges of the roof here, okay? And if you look at a lot of engineering documents and figures, you'll always know that the uplift pressure on your roof is always greatest at the corners and edges of the roof. So anytime you do anything on your roof, whether it's putting solar, re-roof, or anything like that, always consider that and think about ways you could strengthen your roof by, taking into account the greater uplift pressure at the corners and edges. And we cover that in the book. It's in one of the appendixes. We'll cover that shortly. Okay. So this is Daniel in 2000 going by again as a hurricane, then weakened to a tropical storm, and then passed to the east, following a path similar to a cell. And that was in 2000. And the reason I put this in is because these things are actually very common. And we had a cell following a similar track, and now Daniel before that. And as a tropical storm, even as a tropical storm, it can cause damage. Okay, you saw the examples with the cell, and what we said here is can cause damage to houses built before 1988. So whose house was built before 1988? Condo. Okay, condo. Okay. We'll cover some of the dates shortly. Okay, and then the in preparedness, always the motto, right? You prepare for the worst and hope for the best. So really, the worst is like something like Aniki hitting Oahu. Okay, a lot of people on Oahu say, "Oh, we survived Aniki. We're prepared," but people on Oahu didn't really experience the winds and the rain and the brunt of that system. Okay, so they think that if Aniki had turned north 6 hours earlier, instead of the 6,000 or 7,000 houses damaged or destroyed on Kauai, because Oahu has 8 times as many structures, they think damage could have been around ballpark around 50,000 structures.
Was there some weather phenomenon that made it change like that?
Yeah, what's happening is it's moving along, and there's the National Weather Service always says, hurricanes hate high pressure and they love low pressure. So here, there was a low pressure system here, and it sort of like drew Aniki towards it there, okay? And it works in the opposite way, because like before when we talked about Anna, there was a high pressure system, to the northeast of us, and Anna, remember, it was supposed to go like this, and then it pushed it away. Okay, so they're just like hurricanes are just like people. They like low pressure and they hate high pressure, right? So they go away from high pressure and they go towards low pressure. Okay, so learning from Aniki, okay, 6,000 or 7,000 houses damaged or destroyed. So anytime there's a major event, FEMA goes out there, checks all the damage, and what buildings performed well and why, okay? So they go out there and then they do a report, and this is what the report, okay? The two major things which determine if a building performed well or didn't, okay? So successful performance resulted from a clearly defined and continuous load transfer path. Has anyone heard that before? Okay, so it's an engineering term, and we explain it in the book, and we're going to explain it today in lay terms, okay? And then the other thing that buildings performed well is failure of glasswork. Windows, sliding glass doors, hinge doors contribute to a significant percentage of damage to buildings, okay? So a continuous load transfer path is essentially, they're tying, it's almost like they take a chain and they throw it over the roof of your house and they tie it down on either side. But instead of doing that externally, it's all internally through your building codes, okay? So starting in 1988, that's the date, and more so in 1995, but in 1988, they required these things called hurricane clips, okay? So these are hurricane clips. And, later, you get all, you can pass them around. And, okay, so the weakest part of your house is this roof-to-wall connection. Okay, that's the weakest part of your house, the roof-to-wall connection. So it's possible to add hurricane clips. Okay, so in addition to tying your roof to the wall down, you want to tie the second floor to the first floor, and the first floor, the wall studs, to the ground. Okay, so it's almost like, again, the big chain around the roof of your house tying it down, but this is all done by structurally, governed by your building code, which requires these connectors. Okay, so in 1988, they only required this, and in 1995, they changed the building code again, and they required this and these connectors. Okay, any question?
Oh, no, we built a house on Maui about in 1995.
Yeah, we had to do all that.
And I was asking him, did we have to do that?
Yes.
Middle step, I remember.
There's a table in the book that gives the exact date for each item. And I'll tell you that for Oahu is 88 and 95 are the two key dates. For Maui, I can't remember the exact years, but I'll show you later after the presentation where that is, okay?
I do have a question.
Yeah.
You're showing basically wooden beams. Mine is steel perimeter construction. So is that?
Same thing.
Same thing.
Same thing. They would still require the connections, okay? Whether it be wood or steel.
This is not new construction. Is there a remedy for old construction to bring it up to speed?
Yes, we're going to cover that right now, okay? Okay, so there's these different vintages of housing, all on each island, okay? So there's some houses, no hurricane clips, no continuous load transfer path, no window protection. And then in 88 on Oahu, and it's going to be different on Maui, we'll check after the presentation when the date is for Maui. But in 88 on Oahu, they required hurricane clips. And does anyone know why? You sort of mentioned it a little. Okay, so 82, remember 82 Hurricane Eva? Okay, a lot of times the major changes in building codes occur when there's a major hurricane. So Eva in 82 changed the building code. Aniki in 92 changed the building code again. Okay, so in 95, they required the continuous load transfer path on Oahu. And again, remember that's from Aniki. And then right now, the state passed a new building code and the counties are still grappling on how they're going to implement it. But supposedly, there's with this new building code by the state, they're supposed to have the continuous slope transfer path with hurricane clips and either a window protection or a safe roof. Okay? So it's going to be for new housing, but it hasn't been fully implemented yet in the counties. Yes.
So what is, explain the window protection.
Okay, we'll get to that one too.
All right.
We'll get to that one too.
Why don't we save our questions until that?
No, that's all right, because this is all informal.
Right.
So anyway, this is important to know for two reasons. Okay, so first of all, it's very, it's very difficult to make an old house as strong as a new house. But you can make it a lot stronger than it is, okay? So you could add window clips, almost like, not window, hurricane clips. So you're almost like doing what something was built in '88. You could try and complete the continuous slope transfer path. That's a little more difficult. Some people have done it. And of course, you could always add window protection, okay? So we're gonna go over that, what the window protection is, okay? So this is important for two reasons. One, a lot of people go, Dennis, how do I strengthen my house? Or where should I start? And the first thing I ask them is, when was your house built? Right? Because that'll tell them where they fit in this category and what the next step is, okay? The other thing that's relevant is, Dennis, there's a category 1 or a tropical storm, coming. Should I shelter my place? Should I go to emergency shelter? Where should I shelter? So it's almost like you need to make a plan, to determine how strong your house is, versus how strong the system is. And if your house isn't that strong, go to your house is built in '75, but your sons or daughters or relatives' house is built in 2010. Go to their house, okay? Use the emergency shelter is really a place of last resort. Yes.
Were condo codes more strict than home codes?
I think we're actually gonna give me your card later, because we're gonna actually start working a little more with condominiums. It's relevant in terms of like sheltering capacity for all the different islands. But I'm pretty sure the condos follow these similar date timelines. Okay, so this is why you tie the roof down with hurricane clips. Okay, so at only a 90 to 95 mile per hour wind, the uplift on the roof was sufficient to pull this roof off. Okay, it's almost, if you fly in an airplane, right, and when you go like 135 miles per hour, there's enough uplift on that wing to lift the entire plane off the ground. Okay, so you can get similar wind speeds depending on the strength of the hurricane, but even at 90, 95 miles per hour, if your roof isn't tied down strong, it's very susceptible. Okay, so this is an example of the different hurricane clips. We passed them around. Okay, this is like something common that was in houses like 15 or 20 years ago. It's called an H2.5 clip. Actually, this is the type of clip I have in my house here. Okay, these are all made by Simpson Strong Tie. This is an H3 clip. This is a common clip for retrofit applications. You were asking about how do we make houses stronger than they currently are. If they were built before '88, before the building code, how do we make them stronger? And this is an HPT clip. So this clip is good. But sometimes there's this thing. There's some part of the house is sticking out. Okay, called the this freeze board. Okay, if it's sticking out, you cannot use that H3 clip. So they invented this HPT clip. Okay, so it sort of like curves around and ties the roof rafter to the wall of the house, avoiding that freeze board, okay? Okay, here's an example of a house in Pearl City that we added the HPT clip to every rafter. This is actually my wife's. My wife is there. Her parents' house. It's very easy to do. Myself and her actually did the installation. Okay, so it could take 3 Saturdays, $300 material costs, or you could hire a contractor. We'll do it for $2,000. Sometimes if you have a carpenter coming in, we've known a lot of situations where homeowners have carpenters coming into their house, doing stuff in the kitchen and stuff. They could probably put in the clips for you also, okay? So, and it's all external. You can see it's matched we painted the clips to match the color of the rafter. And so there's guidelines in the book. And this is what you're trying to prevent, okay? Trying to prevent uplift off of that, off the wall there. Okay, this is a house in Kaneohe. And again, yeah, this is an example. They had a carpenter coming in. They just asked the carpenter, could he install the clips for them, okay? So he only charged them $600. You can see the different types of clips. This is like I think this is an H10 or H1, tying their beam to the rafter on their garage. And with this, it cost them $600, and they save $140 on their hurricane insurance, because when you make your house stronger or your property stronger, it'll reduce the risk. And then some insurance companies, but not all, will give discounts on your insurance, so help pay off. Okay. Okay, we already seen this one. Okay, the other thing, why do you protect? Why you were asking about window protection? Okay, so window protection. We do not want to use masking tape. Okay, no masking tape. Okay, so why do you need window protection? Okay, so this is Hurricane Iniki, and you can see here's a wood pallet here. Here's some other roofing material. Okay, this is all flying around. If you ever lifted up a wood pallet, they're heavy, and for the wood to be lifting that up and moving it forward, that's strong wind. Okay, so you do not want anything to penetrate into the envelope of your house. Okay, so what you're trying to do is you're trying to keep a complete wind and rain resistant envelope around your house. Okay, like this. Okay, here you only have external pressure on the walls and the roofs here, but when you have an opening, this opening could be by design, or it could be a window broken. Maybe someone put masking tape there, thinking that protect their house. Okay, all of a sudden you're gonna get like internal pressurization, and you're gonna get almost double the uplift pressure on your roof. It's gonna be externally and internally, and it's gonna be more likely that your roof will come off. Okay, so the hurricane clip that you put in there to try and hold the roof down will be working extra hard if there's a breach in the envelope and there's what they call this internal pressurization. Okay, the other thing you don't want to do is, the other reason is because the house, you can have a lot of valuable contents in there. You don't want wind and rain flying around in there and damaging things, and also creating a risk for other people. Some people, if they do wind up sheltering in a strong house and the windows aren't protected, we tell them to stay away from any rooms with windows. Okay, so we covered the different types of window protection. So there are 12 different types covered in the book. Okay, so the most common is plywood. Okay, it's the cheapest and most readily available. Okay, we do not recommend it though if you have to climb up onto a ladder on the second floor to put it in. But it is good on the first floor, and if you're easily accessible, like if you have a patio. Okay, anytime you put a fastener, a shutter, whether it be plywood or different there's also plastic honeycomb panels. Whatever the panels are, you have to fasten them, and you always put them into the structural framing of a window. So windows are framed by two 2x4s. Okay, so here are the 2x4s, right? See them? So you don't want to put the fasteners into the siding of the house. It's got to go into the structural framing of the window. Okay. Another thing that is possible is these things called storm panel screws. I have an example right there, and you just screw them into the framing of the window and cover them with this white cap. And then when there's an event, you pull the white cap off, and the panel should have already been prepared. You put the panel over and fasten it with a wing nut. Okay. Okay. If you're going to use plywood, we go over a lot. We go over that a lot in the book, but it's not. We want to emphasize that's just one of 12 different options. There are other options, okay? But if you're going to use plywood, it needs to be prepared before hurricane season. You cannot try and do it when there's a hurricane watch or warning, okay? So you have to pre-cut to the proper measurements, pre-label it. That means this panel goes to this window. Even though the windows may look exactly the same, it's going to be very important that you make sure you match the panel with the window, because I know in preparing panels, very rarely be 100% exactly the same. So it's important to pre-label it. You want to pre-mark the fastener locations and pre-drill the holes. Okay? So what we did here, it just shows a house that's been covered with plywood. This is like a partial deployment during Anna. It was put up, and you only put in like a third of the fasteners. If the event gets stronger, you put in the rest. If the event is not weakens, like we've seen a lot in the last few years, like they're heading towards us, major events, and then they curve away, then you won't have as many holes to patch. And you could just patch it pretty quick with wood putty. Okay? So here's the book goes over 12 different options for protecting windows. This is what the National Weather Service has. Roll down shutters, throw the switch, you just throw it down, these things deploy, come down off a housing from the top. This is coming very popular. Hurricane panels, it's just clear plastic, or actually steel or aluminum. The clear plastic is a new development. It's good because it allows light to go through. It's very lightweight, and you simply attach the tracks above and below the window beforehand, before hurricane season. If there's an event, you just attach them with wing nuts.
Can I ask on that, are those attached on the outside of the house?
Yes,
Okay.
on the outside. And you can see it's corrugated. This is for strength, and they stack on top of each other. Okay, so at one time, they weren't as popular when they were steel or aluminum, but the fact that they're clear plastic and allow light to go through, it's made them more popular. I've seen on the Gulf Coast, some people keep them up during hurricane season. Okay, this is also popular, is a hurricane screening or fabric. It's for large or unusually shaped windows. It's like similar to what they have at a golf driving range, where they catch golf balls with a net. This will prevent debris from hitting a window. You got to make sure though that there's enough deflection so that it doesn't. Yeah. Okay. So the book again goes over all these options. The most expensive are roll downs. A 3x4 roll down could be like $600 a window times 15 windows, $9,000. Plywood, $30 a window times 15 windows, $450. So everything. Don't always think like you have to go with the extremes. You don't have to just do plywood or just roll downs. There's everything in between that. Okay, so the range is like for a 15 window house, $450 to $9,000, and everything in between. Okay, and the trade-off is the time to deploy. Okay, it's all convenience. Yeah.
What is the plastic there when you look?
Oh, the hurricane fabric is right here. Hurricane screen.
No, I didn't mean that. The one where it's corrugated.
Oh,
and
that's the storm panels right here, and I think those are like $200 are $150 to $175 for a 3x4 window. Yeah. Okay.
Do any of these attach from the inside?
Um,
I mean, that's part of the problem, is attaching them from the outside.
yeah. Do you have? Are you on a second? Are you concerned about?
I even have a third floor. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. There's a laminate film you could put on. It's like a screen, like TNT, except it's not super strong. I mean, it's like there are two things. There's impact-resistant glass and laminated windows. Okay, so the laminate film is like something you get at TNT. It would be sort of dual function. It would cool your house down. It's reflective, heat reflective, and then sort of some type of protection. But again, the strength of it is maxed out by how strong the framing of your window is. Okay, but and it may be sufficient if your window is high enough. You know, because like once you get above 33 feet in height, 30 feet in height, your chance of debris impacts are lower. Okay. Even stronger is impact-resistant glass. Okay, there you can get that at Home Depot or Lowe's. Okay, there it's like 2 window panes, and then there's a laminate sandwich in between, and the framing is fortified for impacts. Okay, so you'll see some of that at Home Depot, but that is a little on the pricier side. Okay, but that's what you can mix and match. You can put the expensive stuff on your upper floor windows, and then the cheaper, easier to deploy stuff on the first floor. Okay, so and there's incentives to strengthen your house. You need to check with your insurance carrier because they're all different. Hurricane clips, 10% off. Some of them. If you're with Zephyr or ICAT, or some of the insurance carriers that Zephyr or ICAT underwrite them. Okay. If you're with them, they'll get the discounts, and you get 10% off for hurricane clips, 15 to 18% off any window coverings, and it's cumulative. So your hurricane insurance could be 25 to 30% off per year. Okay. Okay. On Kauai, they have a property tax credit for safe roof. And then always consider about your insurance if you're in a flood zone. I don't think many properties in Hawaii are in flood zones, okay? But if even if you're not in a flood zone and you have a history of flooding, because sometimes they're like topographic lows, localized topographic lows that FEMA hasn't necessarily mapped them. Still, and if you're have a history of flooding and you're not in a flood zone, still consider getting flood insurance. It's going to be super cheap, because you're going to write it off like you're in a non-flood zone, and then you're going to get pretty good coverage. Okay. There's always a question: do you need hurricane insurance or flood insurance? Okay. So what damage is caused by what? So think of it like this: if the water is coming from the bottom up, you need flood insurance. It's coming from the top down, you need hurricane insurance. Okay. Wind insurance. Shouldn't be too much of a problem in Hawaii, but try and keep trees away from your house, or at least try and trim them so they don't act like an umbrella and topple over. And if there are any loose branches, you want to try and trim them before there's a high wind event. Okay. Houses, gable end houses. Those are houses with gable roofs. They 2 sloping sides, and they meet in the middle ridge. Okay, they tend to have a tendency that they can topple over during weak events. So it's very easy to add 2x4 bracing to brace some of these attics in the attic to brace some of the roofs. Okay, I'm just going to go over this real quick. Is anyone thinking about putting in solar? Has anyone put in solar already? No? Okay, but the updates, the 3rd edition of the book, covers some issues with roofing and solar. I'm just going to go over this real quick. Again, there's a guideline, a FEMA guideline on how to build a stronger roof, and it's in the book. The weakest parts, again, like we pointed out before, the edges and the ridges and corners of the roof are the weakest. So you can compensate that. Like when you put in a new roof, put in like extra asphalt cement along the edges of the roof to hold the roof down, okay? When you put your solar panels in, try and keep it away from the edges or corners, and if you do, try and keep it in that white area, but if you do go into these other areas, maybe they need extra fasteners, so check with your installer, okay? Here's the types of fasteners we're talking about, okay? So again, this pretty much covers everything we're going to go over today. Your emergency supplies and evacuation kit. You need an evacuation plan. The key is you got to know where you're going to go during the high wind event, like a hurricane. And also you should have a plan for a hurricane and a tsunami because there are new tsunami maps out too. And then check about insurance and everything, pay a lot of attention to how strong your house is, because like a lot of people are always doing home improvements, and if they spend maybe just 5 or 10% of that home improvement budget on strengthening their house, they can make it a lot stronger, okay? So that's pretty much what we're covering today. This is where you could get the book online, and then there are free copies available at the university and through Hanauma Bay.
You guys have any more questions?
There are a lot of questions, yeah.
I was wondering, in the book, do you give like inside your home kit of the different supply suggestions?
Yes, that's pretty much standardized for all of Hawaii, okay? And it's in chapter 2, I think it is. Yeah, so it is in here, a list of emergency supplies at page 23 and evacuation kit page 25. So for condo owners and homeowners, still think about this. Yeah.
Instead of emergency kits, one of the challenges is you set it up for one season and then you don't use it. And then you need to restock it to keep stuff current.
Yes. Here's what we always do. So I never put anything in my emergency kit I'm not going to use. So like. Will I use spam? So, a lot of people use spam all the time, but I usually don't eat spam all the time. But will I eat corn all the time? I usually eat corn every month. And a lot of times when I buy things for the emergency kit, 2 things I always look for. What's the longest expiration date? And then also, also like a lot of times has expiration date. It takes like 5 minutes to find where the expiration date is. The print is so fine. You don't know if it's on the product or the packaging or whatever. So as soon as I find the expiration date, I take I take a black ink pen, I mark it in large numbers, July 2018, and I'll put it on the bottom, right? And then I'll do that like for the water we buy, the food, and then I'll know, I always put everything, the latest expiration date on the bottom and everything on top of it. So the other day we had a gathering at our house, we had some water that was like March of 2016. I go, okay, this is the water they use for our party, right? So you gotta keep track of that because you don't, yeah. So, and again, the expiration dates are hard to find, and so once you find them, mark it down with a black pen with large numbers. Yes.
My wife and I were traveling by camper actually, across the mainland in the Midwest, and a big storm hit. So we pulled in to a farmhouse and told the farmer a problem. He said, we have this cellar, a storm cellar.
Oh, okay.
If it gets too bad, come down there because their family's going down to it. So we stayed in our camper at the foot of Rocky. He showed us a tractor haul it in, it was upside down. Instead of being on the wheels, it was the hopper was down. So
Wow.
the storm came through about 2 weeks ago and turned that over.
Wow. Right.
So it can really be severe.
Yes.
What do you do for like a safe room? I've heard people getting in their bathtub.
Okay, so there's actually a new book that came out a week or two ago. Okay, so there's and it's sort of like referenced in this homeowner's handbook, but we're referencing the old version of the book, and the new one just came out like a week or two ago. But they have some guidelines for a safe room, and there is possible to, especially if it's more difficult for an existing house, or existing property, but for a new property, it's not that difficult. For a new property that's being built, for only like $2,000 extra, they could build a safe room out of a clothes closet or something like that. But just framing it with like 3/4 inch plywood or something like that. So I have my cards. Anyone who has questions could email me. I could get you the references to some of these books or other resources. Yeah, there's a guideline for a safe room. There are a lot of guidelines for safe rooms. Yeah.